can men and women really be friends? And why is that important? Why is it important to discuss that? Thank you so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. Happy to welcome back Robert Manni, the author of The Guys Guide to Love and host of Guys Guy Radio and TV right here on YouTube. Robert, thanks for being here again.
Well, thanks for having me back, Silka. I hope we have another fun conversation. We can help some people out there.
Today, I don't even know where to start with this. This is, to me, an incredibly important topic that has touched me in various ways, and we've touched on it in various segments, and that is, can men and women really be friends? And why is that important? Why is it important to discuss that? The answer, from progressive people like us would obviously be, well, of course they can. Of course, men and women can be friends. However, there might be some things we need to think about based on some studies that show that a true platonic relationship is actually very difficult to achieve. Mm-hmm. So, what do you say right away when somebody asks, can women and men be friends?
I say yes. It can be done, and it is done. And I've experienced it, and I know other folks who have experienced it. And that doesn't mean there's no underlying sexual tension or some type of currents there. The point is, Silka, every guy has an inner horn dog, and it's about how we manage our inner horn dog that makes us what type of man we are. We have to be able to control that. So many times, and I think we'll get into this, that women think, oh, we're just buddies, and the guy's thinking, I wonder what. I wonder if there's a shot. I wonder if I have a shot here or whatever. They're just thinking they can't help it. It's the little devil on the right shoulder tapping them. It's a matter of, you got to say, quiet down.
This conversation really goes into almost like three buckets, and we'll keep those in mind as we continue here, because one is, a friendship between a male and a female when you're available, when you're single, and you have a good buddy to go out with. That's one dynamic. The other one is you're in a relationship, or maybe you're starting a new relationship and you've had this female friend or this male friend. Now what? How do you can you carry that friendship on when you're in a relationship? And to what do you have to be concerned about then? And then the third part, and this is really the pro, most relationships that work, long-term relationships, and this is shown in studies as well, friendship is the basis of their relationship. So friendship, huge topic that we're going to try to break up and look at some of the things that were found that I think are important considerations when we ask the question, can men and women be friends? Here's the first thing that the study by a Scientific American, I'll link to it, that was an interesting finding, and that is that women and men view their relationships with friends of the opposite sex in very different ways. That they interviewed friend couples, and the women consistently stated that they had no sexual feeling for their male friends, and they stated that their male counterparts, that they thought their male counterparts had no sexual feelings for them. Then when they interviewed the male counterparts separately, they viewed it totally differently. They did, or many of them anyway, have sexual feelings, and they thought that was reciprocated. It just has never come up. I mean, I think that's really interesting. What do you think?
I think men and women can have friendships, and I think men and women often look at them differently. And I think there's a solution to it where the guys, as I mentioned, you have to manage your inner horn dog, because you're always going to be checking out the women. And regardless if you're in a relationship or not, guys do that. I don't care what anybody says. They do that. And I've done it. And everybody I know has done it, even if they won't admit it. And women may not necessarily do that. And it was interesting that in the literature you sent me, that the older guys were more apt to see the opportunity, like this could turn into a sexual thing, versus a younger guy. And I think part of it's generational, because the younger crowd, like they group hangouts. It's like a little bit more casual. It's a little different. Whereas if you're a boomer, you're a guy, she's a woman. Okay, I'm going for it.
So yeah, you bring up just a really really good point that the older crowd, us, when that's who we're talking to today, that we tend to even go further. And you've said a lot, guys need to keep it in check, and I agree. I also want to state that women need to too. I mean, these studies where the overwhelming majority or the majority,
Right.
they weren't all. I mean, there were women that
Yeah.
want to go further than the guy does, and so I want to
Hmm.
acknowledge that this isn't
Sure.
just a one-sided issue,
Absolutely.
but it does tend to be the men who have a harder time with this. And that was actually one of their next points. Also, an interesting point is that it shows that men, more so than women, they have a harder time because in so many ways they benefit more from a platonic relationship than a woman does. It means more. Just the nature of the platonic relationship. All of a sudden, you're close to a woman, and especially for us older people or older men, that wasn't natural. It's like, you're getting drawn into a relationship. You have somebody you can talk. It's almost more like for the guy, more like than a female,
Confidant. Hmm.
female relationship versus, yeah, confident versus having a friendship with male. They're thrown into a situation that for them maybe wasn't natural to begin, or not natural, but not common. We didn't,
Hmm.
grow up that way. Talk to me about that.
Well, I think it depends also on your upbringing. I know I'm a guy and I had an older brother. That's it. And I didn't have female cousins even. Every time, every interaction I had with females growing up was like it was novel. It was a
Mhm.
surprise. It was always a learning experience. And it took me a while as a guy going through puberty and everything else in my teens to realize like not every woman is there for sex for you, son. It's like you got to stop thinking that way. So my point is that it's different based on your upbringing as a big part of it. If I think if you grow up and you're a guy and you have five sisters, it's easier to be friends with women because you know all about them. They're not so mysterious. For me, growing up, women were like mermaids or something. Like I didn't know about them as much. And so it's different for everybody. And I think for women, because they're used to having confidants, they get together with the girls, if you will,
Mhm.
and they talk about all this stuff. And
Right,
guys are lone wolves. We talk
right.
about even now with my friends. It's
Yeah,
like I don't want to talk about football anymore. Okay, like, is that all there is?
yeah,
So, like the only thing we could talk about.
yeah. Well, and that's where the misinterpretations come in that then need to be managed, and how do you act upon them? Again, if you're single, are you hurt your friendship if you act on this? Because again, like I said
Right.
earlier, one of the benefits is, yeah, maybe you can move forward and you have a wonderful basis for a relationship. But that also, you have to be a little vulnerable there to even disclose that. And then, of course, again, the con, if you're in a relationship and that happens, and it happens, well, one of the psychologists at the interview say that the majority of affairs start as friends in these kind of friendship
Well,
situations, especially in today's world where it's so easy to do it with text, social media, that sort of thing. So it
mhm.
is a valid concern for women or men to have. It's not, if you're jealous or think about this, you may need to be. And then the person who is at the receiving end or whatever needs to be aware of that as well. We'll get into that a little bit more here in a minute. And actually this next point speaks to that, is that the research also showed that men and women equally, they were equally attracted to quote unquote taken friends, like when there's maybe two couples that hang out and they
Mhm.
have different dynamics. The difference was that women thought it was the majority, again, not all of them, but women tended to be, no, that's off. I might really like it, but we're not going to go there. Where the men weren't quite so. I don't know. Maybe let's. They weren't quite so. Let's not go there.
Well, I think again, every situation is an individual situation. So, and guys, I think, have been more adept over time. Maybe it's changing now at compartmentalizing sex. So they could be friends with a woman like, hey, we have sex, and then they go back to being friends or whatever. And it might not mean that much to a guy. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, I'm not saying this is right or anything.
Right.
I'm just saying part of the male psyche could probably accept that and continue to be friends or not.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is human nature is a lot of times we find what we can't have to be more attractive. Oh, she's
Mm-hmm.
taken. I want
That's
her.
good.
She's not taken. I wonder why. It's just
Good
part of
point.
that. Our
Mm-hmm.
our own personal immaturity, plays a role in that.
and again, like you said, it is natural. It's going to happen. Just accept that it does.
Right.
It depends on how you handle it, but be aware that it does happen, and don't make somebody feel bad for wondering. And that goes to like how to make this work. I think we already touched upon that. Do talk about it. If you want to be a friend, or that's what the woman thinks, or vice versa, then be a friend. And the other part of that, again, the con, if you are a partner in a opposite sex relationship, that you are aware of what your partner is, it might be thinking or going through, and they're saying, setting the ground rules for that's something that does have to be clearly put into place, like they're saying here. And I'll ask you, is like, never prioritize your friendships over your partner. Never hide any activity with your friends from your partner. And here's the most important one: never call your partner jealous or crazy for expressing their concerns.
If a guy, there's a couple of dynamics here. If you're in a relationship and you have other friends,
Mm-hmm.
you have to start out from a position of trust,
Mm-hmm.
that you're going to trust your partner to do the right thing. And if you don't trust them, and if you have to call them on it more than once, then I think you've got a potential issue in the relationship, because you can't trust them being friends. Like if you're a guy, like my wife, she can't trust me being friends with another woman. She can, but I have to obviously let her know that this is somebody, like, we're working together. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we work together, we do
Mm-hmm.
this. People have to be understanding of their partner, that it's not an issue. It's just, you're going to work with other people, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
have friendships with other people, and this doesn't have to be anything sexual about it. But that has to be either stated or implied from a
Right.
position of trust.
Right, exactly. No, I totally agree. And 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 I've said this before in other shows, I bring a certain element of distrust because of my history anyway. Like for me, a boundary absolutely would be, you don't go to lunch or dinner or something with a friend. I'm sorry, you don't.
Mhm.
And the other thing that some men don't realize is that they send out mixed messages. If
Right.
they don't may not even realize they're flirting. If they give a woman attention who perhaps is available, who doesn't get a lot of attention, it's a mixed message that, oh, he's interested in me. This happens all the time. And to where a woman that is in a relationship, she has every right to be concerned.
Mhm.
It's I don't know, it's just a very uncomfortable place to be. And it's something to really think about before you hurt something, going down the road. I think they say here, a litmus test is, uh, treat your opposite friend like you would any other friend. And if you think that you're not, or ask yourself, would my partner, would they be okay with what I'm doing, or would I be okay with what's going on? And it can be perfectly innocent, but still, would I be okay with that?
I think that makes perfect sense. And just be upfront about it and ask yourself, have I ever, or how would I feel if the shoes were on the other foot?
Yeah.
And if you start there, you're in a good position. It gets tricky though, because if you have friendships or colleagues or whatever, and you have one person has a partner and the other person doesn't, let's say the woman is taken and the guy is
Mhm.
single, he might be that's going to be he's going to be looking at her, if he's attracted at her, and
Mhm.
wondering, like, is there an opening here at any point? And that's just how it works.
Yeah.
Sorry, it happens. You flip it around. If the guy's taken and the woman wants to be friends or something, and she doesn't have a relationship, she might think, what a great guy.
Mhm.
I know about his partner or something. I would be better for him or something. It can happen
Mhm.
also. So it's
Absolutely.
just part of the individual dynamics. It's not,
Absolutely.
guys are this and women are
Right.
that. We're all human.
Yeah. And that's why we're talking about this, because I think it's important to be aware of these dynamics if you do have that relationship, because again, we've discussed, I can have a lot of pros and cons. We're coming towards the end now. I want to give three warning signs that I found here that indicate that you may be crossing the line of friendship, that, either you're doing it, or if you're observing this in your partner, that, these are warning signs. I think the first one here, sharing things that you don't often share with many people, like your fears, your goals, your dreams, your joys, especially as a man. Is that a red flag?
Not necessarily. If
Mhm.
you can talk about what your goals are and things you want to do. That doesn't have to be, that's not necessarily intimate. Everybody knows, if would this be something I'm sharing with my partner? or anybody else, and I'm sharing with my friend, if it's exclusive that way, then you have to ask yourself, I wonder why I'm doing this, or I
Mm-hmm.
wonder why he or she is doing that,
Right.
because that's an area of intimacy, if you will,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
emotional
yeah,
intimacy.
exactly. It's like an
That should,
emotional affair.
yeah,
Yeah, which
yeah,
is a whole other
yeah.
topic.
And
Here's it. This is good, but large amounts of time or hanging out together one on one. If you do that, and they say here, remember the 4 T's: time, touch, text, or talk. That doing too much of this, might be crossing the lines of friendship.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's clever. Those are guardrails. You have to,
Mm-hmm,
if it's like this, if your partner is texting all the time with somebody of the opposite sex, except if it's with a strictly working relationship where they have to it's
mm-hmm,
project based, they have to get stuff done.
right.
But if it's just goofing around and stuff, at a certain point, you got to say, hey, what's going on here, to
Right.
yourself, and then ultimately probably to your partner, because
Mm-hmm.
listen, people cheat, people do have
Yeah.
affairs. I mean, it's like that's part of life. It is what it is. So
Yep.
warning signs for that. Should you measure that? Should you be aware of those things? Absolutely.
Absolutely, I agree. And here, finally, if you're repeatedly going out of your way to do special things for somebody, to meet someone's needs, you're making them feel special, and you may be sending mixed signals.
Yeah, again, you have to say, okay, you have to process it and say, is this like, it's all relative. You have to determine, is this going out of the way something because he or she wants something more? And
Yeah.
would this be something they would be doing for their partner? Are they just good at something and that's why they
Mm-hmm.
help out?
Well, this topic is so complex. We went a little bit all over the board here, but it's an important topic, I think, because we deal with this for many of us on a daily basis. But the idea that men and women have trouble being friends is they do. There's lots of issues around that, and it's okay to acknowledge that. Can they be friends? Yes, but they do need to. I mean, it's important that you acknowledge the challenges associated with that. What do you say?
I agree 100%, and I think that both partners, not partners, friends,
Mhm.
need to pay attention and watch the signals. Even if you're friends and you've been friends for a while, things can happen. We're
Yeah.
people and we make mistakes, and it all depends on the situation. Just pay attention.
Yeah, I agree. Robert, thank you. As usual, I will link to all of your information, to your website, to your radio show, Guy Sky Radio, and TV right here on YouTube, and of course, UK Health Radio. That's wonderful. You're all over the world now with your fabulous topics, and I look forward to talking with you again soon on Second Act TV.
Thank you, Silka. Thank you, everybody.